The elevator door slid open and Ophelia Kane threw herself inside with 3 seconds to spare, her portfolio clutched against her racing heart, her interview slot ticking away 50 floors above her head. She wasn't alone. The man, already inside, turned, and the breath stopped in her chest. White hair fell past his shoulders, impossibly pale against the black suit that fit him like a second skin. His face was all sharp angles and aristocratic lines, skin so colorless it seemed to drink the light rather than reflect it. Eyes the color of winter ice fixed on her, and for a moment Ophelia forgot why she'd been running, forgot her name, forgot everything except the strange, impossible beauty of the stranger who looked at her as though he could see straight through to her bones. Floor? His voice was velvet over steel, accent impossible to place, something old world and refined. 50, she managed, then realized he'd already pressed it, the only button lit on the panel. They were going to the same place. The elevator began its smooth ascent, and Ophelia tried to steady her breathing. The interview for the curator position at the Greystone Gallery meant everything. 6 months of unemployment, mounting debt, and her mother's medical bills had brought her here to the top of the Eventide Tower, the most exclusive building in the city. The tower itself was legendary. Built 5 years ago by a reclusive billionaire, its architecture a marvel of dark glass and Gothic grace that seemed to defy modern sensibilities while embracing them. She glanced at the man beside her. He stood perfectly still, hands clasped behind his back, watching the city shrink below them through the glass walls. The morning sun caught the edge of the elevator shaft, but somehow the light never quite reached inside, as though the glass itself filtered out the brightness, leaving only shadow and soft illumination from hidden fixtures. "Nervous?" he asked without looking at her. "Is it that obvious?" Now he did turn, and something that might have been amusement flickered across his perfect features. "Your heart is racing." Heat flooded her cheeks. "Job interview? It's important." The gallery position. Not a question. He somehow knew. "Yes, I know it's competitive, but I've wanted to work there since they announced they were opening in the tower. Art history degree, 3 years at the Caldwell Museum before budget cuts, and I've specialized in medieval and Renaissance collections, which I know is exactly what they're building here." She was babbling, nerves making her tongue loose, and she forced herself to stop. The corner of his mouth lifted, barely perceptible. "You have passion for it. That matters more than credentials." "Tell that to the interviewer." "Perhaps I will." Before she could ask what he meant, the elevator lurched. Not hard, just enough to throw her off balance. Her heel caught and she stumbled forward. Strong hands caught her arms, steadying her, and suddenly she was inches from that perfect, impossible face. This close, she could see his eyes weren't just pale, they were luminous, lit from within like captured moonlight. The elevator continued its smooth climb as though nothing had happened. The lurch had lasted half a heartbeat, but Ophelia didn't step back. Something reckless rose in her chest, something wild and bright, born from too many months of fear and desperation, and holding herself together by sheer will. She'd come here expecting to beg for a job, to smile and perform and hope she was good enough. But standing here, caught in this stranger's hands, looking into eyes that seemed to see all the exhaustion and determination she carried, something inside her snapped free. She kissed him, rose on her toes and pressed her mouth to his, one hand fisting in his jacket lapel, her portfolio sliding forgotten to the floor. For a shocked moment, he went perfectly still, and she realized what she'd done, how completely inappropriate and insane it was. Then his arms came around her, pulling her close, and he kissed her back. It wasn't gentle. His mouth moved over hers with controlled intensity, claiming rather than asking, and heat flooded through her body like nothing she'd ever felt. One of his hands slid into her hair, tilting her head to deepen the kiss, and she made a small sound against his lips that might have been surprise or surrender or both. When he finally pulled back, she was breathing hard, her entire body alight with sensation. His eyes had darkened, pupils blown wide, and something predatory flickered across his features before control reasserted itself. "I don't know why I did that," she whispered. "I'm sorry. Don't apologize." His thumb brushed her lower lip, and she shivered. "That was either the bravest or most foolish thing anyone has done in this elevator." "Probably foolish. I prefer brave." He studied her for a long moment, something calculating behind the heat in his gaze. Then he leaned closer, lips brushing the shell of her ear, and his next words sent electricity down her spine. Ride with me to the top." The elevator chimed. 50th floor. The doors opened onto a reception area that looked more like a palace than an office building. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, and walls of that same dark glass that seemed to hold back the daylight, replacing it with soft golden illumination from crystal fixtures. A woman sat behind a massive desk of black wood, her own hair snow white, her skin the same impossible pale shade as the man from the elevator. She looked up, took in the scene Ophelia's flushed face, the man's hand still at her waist, the portfolio on the elevator floor, and something knowing flashed through her expression. "My Lord Eryx," she said, voice carefully neutral. "Ms. Kane's interview is scheduled to begin in 5 minutes." "My lord." Reality crashed back. Ophelia stepped away from the man Eryx and turned to really look at him. The way he held himself, the unconscious authority in every line of his body, the way the receptionist didn't quite meet his eyes, deference in her lowered gaze. "You're Eryx Greymont," she breathed. "You own this building." "I do." He retrieved her portfolio, handed it to her with careful courtesy. "Among other things." The Greymont name was whispered in the same breath as Vanderbilt and Rockefeller, old money and older secrets. The family had emerged from obscurity 20 years ago, buying up property and businesses with seemingly endless wealth. Eryx Greymont himself was a ghost, appearing in no photographs, granting no interviews, conducting all business through intermediaries and lawyers. The Eventide Tower was his first public-facing project, and even that was shrouded in mystery, and she just kissed him in his own elevator. "I should go," she managed. "The interview will wait." Eryx gestured toward a hallway branching off the reception area. "Walk with me first, Ophelia Kane. I think we should talk." She should refuse. Should insist on keeping her appointment, on maintaining whatever professional dignity she could salvage from this disaster. But when he offered his arm with old-fashioned formality, she found herself taking it, letting him guide her down a corridor lined with art that made her curator's heart ache with want. Originals. Everyone. She spotted a Caravaggio, a Klimt, what might have been an actual Da Vinci sketch. "The gallery isn't open yet," Eryx said, watching her reaction. "These are from my private collection. When we launch next month, they'll be part of the inaugural exhibition." "They're magnificent." She stopped before a painting of a night scene, figures in medieval dress gathered beneath a full moon. The detail was exquisite, the sense of captured movement almost alive. "I've never seen this piece catalogued anywhere. Commissioned work. The artist was called Vittorio, and he painted it in 1487. Eryx stood close beside her, close enough that she could feel the cold radiating from his body. Not quite warmth's opposite, but its absence, like standing near snow. He was painting what he saw, the gathering of the courts. Courts? She looked at him, found him watching her with that same intense focus. "Vampire courts, Ophelia." He said it calmly, matter-of-factly, as though commenting on the weather. "Vittorio was human, but he served my family for 40 years. He captured our world in paint, and in exchange we kept him safe, wealthy, and supplied with the finest materials." She should laugh, should pull away and run for the elevator and forget this morning ever happened. But she thought of his impossible coloring, the cold touch of his skin, the way shadows seemed to gather around him, even in the lit corridor, the way the receptionist had called him Lord in a tone that suggested royalty rather than mere respect. "That's not possible," she said, but her voice wavered. "Yet here we stand." He turned to face her fully, and now she saw the slight elongation of his canines, the inhuman perfection of his features. "I am Eryx Greymont, and I am what your stories call vampire. The Greymont line has walked this earth for 3,000 years. I am its current king, and this tower is the seat of my court." Ophelia's hand went to her throat, instinctive protection. Eryx tracked the movement, then very deliberately stepped back, giving her space. "I won't hurt you. You kissed me, remember? That was your choice, freely made. Everything I offer you will be the same." "Offer me?" Her voice came out higher than she intended. "You mean the job? This was all what, some kind of game?" "No game." His expression hardened. "The position is real. The gallery is real. We need someone with your expertise and passion to run it. But after what just happened between us, you deserve to know the truth of what you'd be walking into." She tried to process it, to fit the pieces together. Vampires. A vampire king who owned half the city and wanted her to curate his art collection. Who she'd kissed in an elevator. who'd kissed her back like she was air and he was drowning. "Why reveal yourself?" she asked finally. "You could have just hired me, kept your secret." "Because you felt it." He moved closer again, drawn like a lodestone, and his hand came up to brush her cheek. "In the elevator. That wasn't just attraction, Ophelia. That was recognition. When you touched me, something shifted. I've lived 3 centuries, and I've never felt anything like that moment." Her breath caught, because he was right. She had felt it, that strange click of rightness like puzzle pieces sliding into place. Looking at him now, knowing what he was, she should be terrified. Instead, she felt drawn, pulled by invisible threads she didn't understand. "I can't," she whispered. "I have a normal life, a mother who needs me, bills to pay. I can't just walk into some supernatural world. I'm not asking you to walk into anything. I'm offering you a job, good salary, benefits, and the chance to work with pieces most curators only dream of seeing." His thumb traced her jawline. "What happens between us beyond that is your choice, but I won't lie to you, and I won't hide what I am." "And what are you really, beyond vampire?" "Lonely." The word was quiet, almost vulnerable. "King of a dying court, watching my people fade while the human world expands around us. The tower isn't just architecture, Ophelia, it's sanctuary. The glass is specially treated to filter sunlight, allow us to move freely during the day for the first time in millennia. Every floor houses members of my court, businesses they run, lives they're building. The gallery is part of that, a bridge between our world and yours, beauty we can share." She looked past him, down the hallway lined with centuries of art, thought of the life she'd been living, scraping by, watching her savings drain away with every passing month. Thought of her mother's illness, the treatments they couldn't afford, thought of the emptiness that had settled into her bones, the slow death of hope, and she thought of that moment in the elevator, the wild, bright thing that had made her kiss a stranger, that had felt more real than anything in months. "What's the salary?" she asked. Eryx smiled, really smiled, and it transformed his face from austere to devastating. "Enough to cover your mother's treatment at Westbrook Medical Center, with a generous amount left over. I know her situation, Ophelia. I know everything about you. That isn't meant to frighten you, it's what I do. I protect what's mine, and that means knowing every detail." "I'm not yours." "Not yet." He said it with absolute certainty, and heat flared in her stomach. "But you will be. That kiss was a promise, even if neither of us knew it at the time. Now come. Let me show you the gallery itself, and then you can decide." He led her to a set of double doors at the corridor's end. When he pushed them open, Ophelia forgot how to breathe. The gallery space was massive, taking up what had to be half the 50th floor. Soaring ceilings, perfect lighting, and walls designed to showcase art of every era. But it was the view that stole her words. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the entire city, the vista stretching to the horizon in every direction. "The view is mine," Eryx said softly, standing behind her, "but I'm willing to share it. Say yes, Ophelia. Ride with me to the top. See where this takes us." She turned to face him. This impossible man, this vampire king who looked at her like she was something precious and rare. Every logical part of her brain screamed caution. Every instinct whispered yes. "I'll take the job," she said, "but slowly. I need time to understand all this, to figure out what it means." "You'll have all the time you need." He raised her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles that burned like ice and fire combined. "Welcome to the Eventide Tower, Ophelia Kane. Let me show you what eternity looks like." The first week was a blur of contracts, paperwork, and her mother's shocked tears when Ophelia explained she'd gotten a position with benefits comprehensive enough to cover the experimental treatment the doctors had recommended. She didn't mention vampires or kings or the fact that her new employer made her heart race every time he walked into the room. Eryx was everywhere and nowhere, appearing at odd hours when the gallery was quiet, disappearing for days at a time to handle business she didn't ask about. When he was present, he watched her work with an intensity that should have been unnerving, but instead felt like being held in warm hands, safe and seen. The others in the tower were harder to read. Lysander, Eryx's second in command, was tall and lean with silver white hair and eyes like chips of amber. He dressed in expensive suits that somehow looked like armor, and regarded Ophelia with cool assessment every time their paths crossed. "You're the human who kissed the king?" he said one evening, finding her alone in the gallery after hours. "That was bold." "It was stupid. Ophelia replied, not looking up from the inventory list she was reviewing. Perhaps, or perhaps fate. He moved through the space with predatory grace, stopping before the Caravaggio. Eryx hasn't taken a concert in 200 years. The last one died in the purges, when hunters burned through Europe, killing everyone they could find. He swore he'd never risk that kind of loss again. Now Ophelia did look up. I'm not his consort. I'm his employee. You're something, and that makes you dangerous to yourself and to him. Lysander's gaze pinned her in place. There are those in the court who oppose any human involvement in our affairs. There are others who would use you as a weapon against Eryx if they could. Be careful, Ophelia Kane. The view from the top is beautiful, but the fall is fatal. He left before she could respond, and Ophelia sat alone in the darkened gallery, surrounded by priceless art and the weight of his warning. She should have been afraid, should have quit, walked away, gone back to her safe, small life. But when Eryx appeared an hour later, drawn by some instinct she was beginning to understand worked both ways, she felt only relief. Lysander found you, he said, reading her expression with ease. He warned me. About danger, about people who might want to hurt you through me. Eryx's jaw tightened. He wasn't wrong, but I won't let anyone harm you, Ophelia. I've already increased security, made it clear to every member of my court that you're under my protection. Why? She stood, crossed to where he waited in the doorway. You barely know me. That kiss was just a moment, a stupid impulse. Why risk your political standing or whatever it is for someone you met a week ago? He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear with careful tenderness. Because when you touched me, I felt something I haven't felt in centuries. Hope. The possibility of connection, of not being alone in the endless dark. You don't understand yet what that means, how rare it is, but I do, and I'm not giving it up without a fight. I'm not some prize to be fought over. No, you're a woman with your own mind and will, and that's exactly why this matters. His hand cupped her cheek, cupped her, thumb brushing her lower lip like he had in the elevator. I'm not asking you to surrender anything. I'm asking you to stay, to let this grow, to see if what we both felt was real. Ophelia's heart hammered against her ribs. And if it is, what then? I'm human, Eryx. I'm going to age, die. You'll still be here centuries from now. Then we find solutions. There are ways, old magic, if that's what you want someday. But that's far ahead. Right now, I just want to know you, to court you properly, if you'll allow it. He smiled, and the vulnerability in it made her chest ache. I'm rather out of practice. The last time I wooed someone, it was 1823, and the customs were significantly different. A laugh bubbled up despite everything. Significantly? Teach me then. Show me how it's done in this century. She thought of all the reasons to say no, all the logical arguments against getting involved with a vampire king. Then she thought of how alive she felt when he was near, how the gray numbness that had dogged her for months evaporated in his presence. Dinner, she said. That's how it starts. You take me to dinner, somewhere nice, and we talk. Just talk, like normal people. I can do that. His smile widened. Though I should warn you, I won't actually eat. The food is purely decorative at this point. Of course it is. But she was smiling too, and when he offered his arm, she took it. They fell into a rhythm over the following weeks, dinners and restaurants where Eryx ordered wine he didn't drink and watched her eat with fascinated attention. Walks through the city after dark when he could move freely without the tower's protective glass. Long conversations in the gallery while she worked, his presence a constant anchor as she slowly brought order to the chaos of the collection. He told her about his life, 300 years compressed into stories that made her laugh and ache in equal measure. The courts of Europe, the long, slow decline of vampire society as the human world modernized. The decision to build the tower, to create sanctuary in the heart of the city rather than hiding in the shadows. We were dying, he said one night, standing at the windows overlooking the glittering sprawl below. Not from violence or hunters, but from irrelevance. The world moved on and we stayed locked in the dark, bound by our weakness to sunlight. When the technology finally advanced enough to create glass that could filter UV rays without blocking all light, I saw the opportunity, a chance to rejoin the world, to build something new. But some in your court opposed it, Ophelia guessed. Many opposed it, still oppose it. There's a faction that believes we should remain separate, that any contact with humans is contamination. His expression darkened. They're led by Constantine Thorne, an old rival who has wanted my position for the last century. He sees the tower as weakness, proof that I'm unfit to rule. Is he dangerous? Extremely, but manageable as long as I'm careful. Eryx turned to face her, which is why Lysander worries. You're a variable Constantine could exploit, a human in my court and my life. He'll see you as either a tool or a target. Fear tried to take root, but Ophelia pushed it aside. Then we don't give him the chance. You said I'm under your protection. What does that mean exactly? It means no vampire in my court can touch you without facing me directly. It means guards watch your apartment building, your mother's hospital. It means you're as safe as I can make you in this world. He moved closer until they were inches apart. But it also means you're marked as mine, Ophelia. Whether we name it or not, the court sees you as my consort in all but formality. And what do you see me as? His hand came up to cup her face, and the cold of his skin against hers had become familiar, comforting. Everything. The light I've been missing. The reason to build a future instead of just surviving an endless present. She kissed him then, rising on her toes to close the distance between them. This kiss was different from the first, less desperate, more deliberate, a choice made with full knowledge and clear intent. His arms came around her, pulling her close, and she let herself sink into the sensation, into the impossible rightness of being held by someone who shouldn't exist. When they broke apart, both breathing hard despite his lack of need for air, Eryx rested his forehead against hers. Stay tonight. Not for anything but this. I want to hold you while you sleep, keep you close, let me have that. She should go home, should maintain some boundary, some separation between professional and personal. But she was tired of should, tired of caution. Yes, she whispered. Yes. He led her through the tower to his private floors, and Ophelia entered a world of luxury that belonged to another era. Rich fabrics, dark wood, and everywhere the same protective glass that let in light without the lethal sunshine. His bedroom was enormous, dominated by a bed that looked hand-carved, ornate, and beautiful. Eryx gave her clothes to sleep in, left her privacy to change, and when she emerged in his too large shirt, he was waiting by the window, looking out over his city. Do you ever sleep? She asked, climbing into the bed that was as comfortable as it looked. Sometimes. Less than humans require, but I'm not immune to rest. He joined her, pulling her against his chest, and despite the cold of his body, she felt warm, safe. Sleep, Ophelia. I'll keep watch. She drifted off, wrapped in his arms, and for the first time and longer than she could remember, nightmares didn't find her. The trap was sprung on a Tuesday morning. Ophelia arrived at the gallery to find a woman waiting, human by her coloring, dressed in a business suit that screamed money and power. She smiled when Ophelia entered, but it didn't reach her eyes. Ms. Kane, I'm Helena Marsh, representing the Whitmore Foundation. We're considering a significant donation to the gallery's acquisition fund, but I have some questions about the collection first. It seemed legitimate. The Whitmore Foundation was real, wealthy, and exactly the kind of donor they'd been courting. Ophelia welcomed her in, began walking her through the planned exhibitions, discussing provenance and historical significance. She didn't notice how Helena's questions probed deeper than simple interest warranted. Didn't see the way the woman's gaze cataloged the security measures, the hidden doors, the private corridors leading to Eryx's inner sanctum. It was only when Helena asked about the special arrangements for nighttime access that warning bells began ringing. Something in her tone, a predatory interest that had nothing to do with art. I'm sorry, Ophelia said carefully, but those details are handled by Mr. Greymont directly. I can arrange a meeting. No need. Helena's smile sharpened. I've seen what I needed to. Thank you for your time, Miss Kane. You've been very helpful. She left, and Ophelia stood frozen, instinct screaming that something was wrong. She pulled out her phone, called Eryx directly. He answered on the first ring. Ophelia, I think I just made a mistake. The words tumbled out as she explained the visit, Helena's questions, the wrongness she'd felt. I'm sorry, I should have checked with you first, stay where you are, lock the gallery doors, I'm coming now. His voice had gone hard, kingly, and she heard shouting in the background before the line went dead. Ophelia locked the doors with shaking hands, then retreated to the interior office, pulling up the gallery's security system on the computer. The cameras showed the hallway outside empty, the elevator motionless, everything looked normal. But 15 minutes later, when the elevator began moving again, it wasn't Eryx who emerged. Constantine Thorne was everything Eryx had described and worse. White hair braided down his back, face sharp and cruel, dressed in black that made his pale skin look like marble. He wasn't alone. 3 others flanked him, all with the same vampiric coloring, all moving with predatory purpose toward the gallery doors. Ophelia grabbed her phone, but before she could dial, the lights went out. Emergency backups kicked in, bathing everything in red. Through the glass office walls, she saw Constantine testing the locked gallery doors, then gesturing. One of his companions placed a hand against the lock, and Ophelia heard the grinding shriek of metal warping. They were coming in. She looked around frantically for escape, for a weapon, for anything. Found the letter opener on her desk, heavy brass, and clutched it despite knowing how useless it would be. The office had no other exit, just glass walls that showcased the gallery space and the approaching vampires. The door to the gallery gave way with a crash. "Ophelia Kane!" Constantine's voice carried easily across the space. "Come out. We're not here to hurt you, simply to collect you. You're bait, nothing more." "Bait for what?" she called back, trying to keep her voice steady. "For our dear king. He's grown soft, attached to a human pet. That makes him weak, and weakness cannot rule." Constantine appeared outside the office, smiling through the glass. "When he comes for you, we'll be waiting. His court will see him fall, watch him die for sentiment, and then I'll take what should have been mine all along." "He won't come alone," Ophelia said, though terror clawed at her throat. "You'll be executed for this." "Only if there is anyone left to execute me. Wars have been started for less little human. By the time the sun rises, the court will have a new king, and you'll be a footnote in history. If you're very lucky, I'll let you go afterward. If not," he shrugged, "collateral damage." The glass shattered. Constantine moved faster than her eyes could track, and suddenly he was inside, his hand wrapping around her throat, lifting her off her feet. The letter opener fell from her nerveless fingers. She kicked, struggled, but he held her like she weighed nothing. "Such a fuss over something so fragile," he mused, carrying her back toward the main gallery. "I almost understand the appeal. There is something charming about how easily you break." "Let her go, Constantine." Eryx's voice was death itself, cold and absolute. He stood in the gallery entrance, Lysander and a dozen others at his back. His eyes had gone completely black, no white remaining, and his canines were fully extended. He looked like the monster from nightmares, beautiful and terrible, and Ophelia had never been so grateful to see anyone in her life. "I think not." Constantine's grip tightened, cutting off her air. "You're outnumbered, old friend. I have allies throughout the tower, loyalists who agree it's time for change. Surrender your claim, walk away, and I'll let the human live." Eryx took a step forward, and Constantine squeezed harder. Black spots danced in Ophelia's vision. "Think carefully," Constantine warned. "I can snap her neck before you cross half this distance. Is she really worth your throne? Your life?" For a horrible moment, Ophelia saw calculation in Eryx's expression, saw him weighing the cost. She tried to shake her head, tried to tell him to leave, save himself, but she couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. Then Eryx's face softened, just slightly, and he looked directly at her. "Yes," he said simply, "she is." What happened next was chaos. Eryx moved, and it was like watching violence distilled to its purest form. He crossed the gallery in a blur, and Constantine dropped Ophelia to meet the attack. She hit the floor, gasping, and Lysander was there instantly, dragging her back toward safety while the others engaged Constantine's allies. The vampires fought with inhuman speed and strength, and Ophelia watched in horror as Eryx and Constantine tore into each other. Blood sprayed black in the red emergency lighting, furniture shattered, a priceless sculpture fell and broke, but no one noticed. Eryx was faster, stronger, but Constantine was desperate. He produced a blade from somewhere, silver that gleamed wet with something dark, and when it scored across Eryx's ribs, he screamed. "Poison?" Constantine gasped, his own face bloodied. "Old magic, old toxins. You'll be dead in minutes, King. Surrender now, and I'll make it quick." Eryx's response was to drive his fist through Constantine's chest. The other vampire staggered, looked down at the hand buried in his sternum, and laughed wetly. Mutual destruction then. How poetic. He collapsed, and Eryx pulled his hand free, letting the body fall. Around them, the fighting ceased as Constantine's allies saw their leader die. Lysander stepped forward, voice ringing with authority. It's over. Those who stand with Constantine leave now or face execution. Those loyal to King Eryx secure the tower. The room emptied quickly, vampires fleeing or moving to obey. Lysander began coordinating the response, snapping orders, but Ophelia only had eyes for Eryx. He dropped to one knee, hand pressed to his wounded side, black blood seeping between his fingers. She ran to him, dropped down beside him, pressed her hands over his. "Tell me what to do," she demanded. "How do I help you?" "You can't." His voice was strained, face pale even for him. "The poison is old, predates most modern knowledge. It will burn through me, shut down everything." "I'm sorry, Ophelia. I should have kept you safer. Should have—" "Shut up." Tears streamed down her face. "You don't get to die. You said we had time, that we'd figure this out together. You promised me the view from the top, and I'm not ready to let that go." "I'm sorry," he said again, and his hand came up to cup her cheek. "For what it's worth, this was worth it. You were worth it." "No." She turned to Lysander, who'd approached silently. "There has to be something. Medicine, magic, anything, please." Lysander's expression was grim. "There is one thing. It's untested, dangerous, and it may not work." "Tell me." "Human blood, freely given, can dilute vampire toxins. It's why we avoid feeding from the sick or poisoned. But if he drinks from you, drinks enough to flush the poison from his system, it might save him." Lysander met her eyes. "But Ophelia, you'd have to give a lot, possibly too much. You could die in his place." She didn't hesitate. "Do it." "Ophelia, no." Eryx tried to push her away, but he was weakening, his movement sluggish. "I won't risk you. Not your choice." She pulled off her jacket, bared her wrist, then thought better of it and tilted her head, exposing her throat. "Here, make it count. Listen to me." His hand shook where it touched her face. "If I start, I may not be able to stop. The poison, the hunger, I won't have control. Then I trust you to find it." She leaned in, pressed her lips to his cold mouth. "Bite me, Eryx. Live. That's an order from your consort." Something flickered in his dying eyes, surprise and love and desperate hope. Then his arms came around her, and his mouth found her throat. The pain was sharp and bright, but it faded quickly into something else, something warm and dizzying. She felt him drinking, felt her heartbeat slowing, her strength draining away, but she also felt something flowing the other direction, connection deeper than blood, his life force intertwining with hers. Her vision grayed at the edges, her body went heavy, unable to support itself. But she felt Eryx growing stronger, his grip steadying, the tremor leaving his limbs. "Enough," Lysander said from somewhere far away. "Eryx, that's enough." But he kept drinking, and Ophelia realized dimly that he'd been right. He couldn't stop. The poison and hunger had taken over, and he was going to drain her dry, was going to kill her trying to save himself. She managed to lift one hand, thread her fingers through his white hair. "It's okay," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if sound came out. "I love you. It's okay." Something in those words reached him. His mouth tore away from her throat, and he was gasping, holding her against him while blood ran down her neck and soaked into her shirt. "No, no, no." His voice was raw, frantic. "Ophelia, stay with me. Lysander, call the doctors now. Don't you dare die. Do you hear me? That's an order from your king." She tried to smile, tried to tell him she'd take it under advisement, but darkness rose up and dragged her under before the words could form. Ophelia woke to soft light and the steady beep of hospital equipment. For a disoriented moment, she didn't know where she was. Then memory crashed back and she gasped, trying to sit up. Gentle hands pressed her back down. "Easy. You're safe." Her mother's voice, thick with tears. "Oh, baby, you're awake. The doctor said you'd be okay, but seeing you lie there so still..." "Mom." Her throat was raw, every word painful. "What happened?" "You're at Westbrook Medical Center, in the private wing. Mr. Greymont brought you here himself 4 days ago. He's been..." Her mother's expression did something complicated. "He hasn't left. The doctors had to set up a chair in the corner because he refused to go, even during the day. He's been sitting in the dark with the shades drawn, just watching you breathe." 4 days. She'd been unconscious for 4 days. "Is he here now?" "In the corner. It's evening, so he's not hiding anymore." Her mother squeezed her hand. "Ophelia, who is he really? What happened? He paid for everything, told the doctors to spare no expense, and he looks at you like you're his whole world. But he's so strange, so cold, and the staff whisper when he walks by. Before Ophelia could figure out how to answer, Eryx appeared beside the bed. He looked terrible, face drawn, eyes hollowed with fear and exhaustion. He'd changed clothes at some point, but blood still stained his collar, her blood, and guilt radiated from him in waves. "You're awake." His hand hovered over hers, not quite touching, as though he'd lost the right. "I'm so sorry, Ophelia. I nearly killed you. If Lysander hadn't pulled me away, if you hadn't reached me at the last moment, but I did reach you." She managed to turn her hand over, catch his cold fingers in hers. "I'm here. We both are. That's what matters. You should hate me. I'm a monster, exactly what the stories warn about. You're a man who fought for me, killed for me, and almost died for me. That's not a monster, Eryx. That's someone worth saving." She looked at her mother, saw the confusion and dawning understanding. "Mom, I need to talk to Eryx alone. Can you give us a few minutes?" Her mother hesitated, then nodded, squeezing Ophelia's hand once more before slipping out. When the door closed, Ophelia met Eryx's tortured gaze. "Sit down. Tell me what happened after I passed out." He sank into the chair beside the bed, still clutching her hand like a lifeline. "I got you here as fast as I could. You'd lost so much blood. The doctors said it was a miracle you survived at all, that 5 more seconds and your heart would have stopped." His voice cracked. "I did that to you. I took you to the edge of death because I was too weak to stop myself. You were poisoned. You would have died. Then I should have died. Better that than make you my victim." He looked away, jaw clenched. Constantine is dead. His allies have been dealt with, either executed or exiled from the court. The tower is secure again. But that doesn't change what I did, what I am. You deserve better, Ophelia. You deserve someone who doesn't risk killing you every time he touches you." She was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then she said, "Look at me." When he did, reluctantly, she held his gaze. "I knew what I was doing. I made that choice freely, fully aware of the risk. You told me I'd have to give too much, and I did it anyway because the world without you in it is worse than any risk." She squeezed his hand. "I love you, Eryx Greymont. I've been falling since that first moment in the elevator, and I don't want to stop. So you can either accept that and figure out how we move forward, or you can walk away, but don't make that choice for me out of guilt. I love you too." The words were raw, scraped from somewhere deep. "More than I've loved anything in 3 centuries. That's why this terrifies me." "Good. It should terrify both of us. Love is always a risk." She tugged his hand, pulling him closer. "But I want to take that risk. I want the view from the top, Eryx. I want to ride with you through everything that comes. Just promise me we'll be careful, that we'll find ways to keep each other safe. I promise." He leaned in, pressed his forehead to hers carefully, as though she might break. "I promise everything I am is yours, for as long as you'll have me." "Then kiss me, and let's start figuring out the details." He did, gentle and reverent, and Ophelia tasted salt, his tears. Or hers, she wasn't sure, but it didn't matter. They were alive, together, and that was enough. The doctors kept her for another week, ensuring the blood transfusions took and her body recovered. Eryx barely left, and when he did, Lysander or another guard took his place. The protection was absolute, and Ophelia began to understand what it meant to be claimed by a vampire king. Her mother took it better than expected. Once Ophelia explained carefully, with Eryx present to answer questions, her mother simply nodded and said, "I knew there was something different about him, and I know how you look at each other. Just promise me you'll be safe." "I promise, Mom." "And Mr. Greymont." Her mother fixed Eryx with a look that would have been terrifying if she were the one with supernatural powers. "You hurt my daughter again, and I don't care what you are. I will find a way to make you regret it." "I'd expect nothing less," Eryx replied solemnly. "You have my word, Mrs. Kane. I will protect her with everything I am." When they finally released Ophelia, Eryx took her not to her apartment, but back to the tower. "I had your things moved," he explained as they rode the elevator different car, but she still remembered that first meeting, that impulsive kiss that had changed everything. "With your permission, I'd like you to stay in the tower. My private floors, with me, it's safer, and He trailed off, uncharacteristically uncertain. "You want me close," she finished. Desperately. But I understand if you need space, time to recover. I want to be close too. She leaned into him, felt his arms come around her. Take me home, Eryx. Show me the view. His floors had been transformed. Where before they had been elegant but sparse, now they held touches of warmth. Books on shelves, art chosen for beauty rather than value, soft blankets and comfortable furniture, a space for living, not just existing. And the view, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the entire city, the sun setting in brilliant orange and gold. Eryx stood behind her, arms wrapped around her waist, and together they watched light fade into darkness. The glass holds back the killing rays. He murmured against her hair, but I can still feel the sun. It's weak, bearable, but it reminds me every day what I am. What I gave up when I was turned. Do you regret it? I used to. 3 centuries is a long time to watch everyone you love die, to exist rather than live, but not anymore. He turned her in his arms, and his smile was unbearably tender. You make me grateful for every year I survived, because they led me here, to that elevator, to that moment when you kissed me, to now. Quite the romantic speech from someone who claimed to be out of practice. You inspire me. His thumb brushed her cheek. Teach me more. Show me how to be the partner you deserve. She pretended to consider. Well, usually people who live together split the chores, but since you don't sleep much, eat, or go out during the day, I'm not sure that applies. I could take up cooking. It would all be terrible and inedible, but the effort would count for something. She laughed, and it felt good, normal, like maybe they could build something real despite the impossibility of it all. Or you could just keep looking at me like that, and we'll call it even. Like what? Like I'm the sunrise you can't have, like I'm magic. She sobered. I know this won't be easy. Your court, the danger, the fact that I'm mortal and you're not, but I meant what I said at the hospital. I want this, Eryx. I want you. You have me. He kissed her softly, carefully, mindful of her still healing body. Every dark corner of my soul, every cold inch of this immortal flesh, it's yours, Ophelia, now and always. They stood at the window as night fell completely and the city lit up below them, 1,000 points of light against the dark. Ophelia thought about fate and choice, about the moment in the elevator that had led to everything, about how sometimes the bravest thing was to take a risk on the impossible. The gallery opens in 2 weeks, she said eventually. Are you ready? Are you? After everything that happened, I wouldn't blame you for wanting to walk away. I'm not walking away from anything. Not the job, not you, not this life. I'm in, Eryx, all the way to the top. His arms tightened around her. Then let me show you something. He led her to a section of his quarters she hadn't explored, unlocked a door with an old-fashioned key, and revealed a room that stole her breath. It was a library, but not like any she'd seen. Thousands of books lined the walls, floor to ceiling, ancient and modern mixed together. But more than that, the entire far wall was a window, larger than any of the others, showcasing the city and the sky beyond. This is the highest point in the tower, Eryx explained, watching her reaction. The true top. I had it built specifically for this view. I wanted to show you before, but it didn't feel right until now. It's perfect. She walked to the window, pressed her hand against the cool glass. You can see everything from here. That was the idea, to have a place above the world where I could think and plan and remember why I'm doing all this. He joined her, and together they looked out over the sprawling metropolis. But it was lonely, Ophelia. Beautiful but empty. Now, with you here, it finally makes sense. She turned to face him, saw the vulnerability in his ancient eyes, and made a decision. Before you mentioned there were ways. Old magic, you said. If I ever wanted more time. His breath caught, unnecessary habit lingering despite his nature. I did. But that's a conversation for much later, after you've had time to truly understand what it means. I understand that I love you. I understand that a human lifetime isn't going to be enough, not for what I feel. I understand that you're offering me a choice, and I want to know what that choice looks like. Eryx was quiet for a long moment. Then he took her hand and led her to the leather chairs in the library center, sat with her, their knees touching. There are 2 options, he began carefully. The first is the turn, what was done to me. A vampire drinks you to the point of death, then feeds you their blood. You die and wake as one of us. It's permanent, irreversible, and not without risks. Some don't survive the transition. Those who do are changed fundamentally, made into something other than human. And the second? Blood bonding. It's older, rarer, and more complex. A human drinks vampire blood regularly over time, not enough to turn them, but enough to alter them. They gain extended life, slow aging, some increased healing, but they remain human in all the ways that matter. The downside is it requires maintenance, regular doses every few months, and it ties the human to the vampire absolutely. If the vampire dies, the human ages rapidly, catches up to the years they have borrowed. So if something happened to you, I'd die. Eventually, yes. Which is why I hesitate to even suggest it. It makes you more vulnerable, not less. Ophelia absorbed this, turning it over in her mind. But I'd stay human? Keep my heartbeat, my warmth, everything? Yes, you'd just have more time to enjoy it. She thought of her mother, still healing but finally stable. Thought of the life she'd started to build, the career she loved. Thought of Eryx and the impossibility of loving someone who'd outlive her by centuries. I want the bond, she said finally. Not now, not immediately, but someday, when we're both ready, I want that choice. Relief and love washed across his face in equal measure. We have time to decide, years even, but knowing you'd consider it, that you want that future with me, I want everything with you. She cupped his face, marveling at how this cold, undead thing could make her feel so alive. The gallery, the tower, the view from the top, all of it Eryx. Show me your world and let me show you mine. Let's build something neither of us could have created alone. He kissed her, then deep and claiming, and she let herself fall into it, into him. Later, he carried her to his massive bed, and they lay tangled together, her heartbeat a counterpoint to his stillness. She traced the line of his jaw, the sharp edge of his cheekbone, learning the map of his face. Tell me about the gallery opening, she murmured, sleep pulling at her despite her best efforts to fight it. It will be the event of the season. Court members, human elite, art collectors from around the world. Lysander is handling security, making sure nothing like Constantine's attempt happens again. And you'll be there, presiding over it all, showing everyone what we've built. His fingers combed through her hair, gentle and rhythmic. You'll be magnificent, Ophelia. They won't know what hit them. Will there be dancing? I feel like an event in a vampire tower should have dancing. If you want dancing, there will be dancing. I'll even participate, though I should warn you my skills are a century out of date. We'll practice. She yawned, burrowing deeper into his hold. Tomorrow, right now, I'm too tired to move. Sleep, love. I'll be here when you wake. She drifted off to the sound of his unnecessary breathing, the rhythm he maintained purely for her comfort, and dreamed of ballrooms and art galleries and the view from the top of the world. The 2 weeks before the opening passed in a blur of activity. Ophelia threw herself into final preparations, hanging pieces, coordinating with caterers and musicians, ensuring every detail was perfect. Eryx was her shadow, offering opinions when asked, mostly just watching her work with undisguised affection. The other court members gradually warmed to her presence. Lysander remained protective and slightly distant, but he stopped questioning her role. Others introduced themselves, vampires centuries old who nonetheless treated her with respect due to Eryx's obvious claim. One evening, a woman named Seraphina pulled Ophelia aside. She was beautiful like all vampires, with silver white hair and eyes like twilight, and she wore the ancient clothing with more comfort than the modern suits others affected. You're good for him, Seraphina said without preamble. I've known Eryx for 200 years, watched him shoulder the weight of leadership alone. I never thought I'd see him happy again, but you make him happy. He makes me happy too, Ophelia replied. I know. I can smell it on you both, the bond forming. You haven't completed it yet, but it's there, growing stronger. Seraphina studied her with ancient eyes. When you do, when you take that final step, it will change you. Make you more than human, but not quite vampire. You'll be something new, something precious. Guard that carefully, Ophelia Kane. There are still those who envy what you have. Are you warning me about something specific? Just being careful. Constantine wasn't the only one who opposed Eryx's vision for our kind. He was just the loudest, the most willing to act. Others wait and watch, looking for weakness. Don't provide them with ammunition. It should have felt like a threat, but Seraphina's tone was more protective than hostile. I'll be careful, and thank you for watching out for him all these years. Watch out for each other now, that's what matters. She left, and Ophelia returned to Eryx's side, tucking herself against him. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, and they stood together looking out at the gallery they'd built. "Seraphina approves of you," he said with amusement. "You heard that. Vampire hearing is exceptional. But don't worry, I only eavesdrop on conversations that involve you. Everything else gets politely ignored." She elbowed him, and he laughed, the sound rich and genuine. Moments like this, when the weight of kingship lifted and he was just Eryx, just a man who loved her, were becoming more frequent. She hoarded them like treasure, these glimpses of what their future could hold. The night of the opening arrived with perfect weather and terrible timing. Her mother had taken a turn for the worse that afternoon, and Ophelia spent hours at the hospital before the doctor stabilized her. She arrived at the tower with barely an hour to prepare, exhausted and emotionally wrung out. Eryx took one look at her and pulled her into his arms. "We can cancel. Postpone everything. Your mother is more important. She's stable now, and she made me promise I'd come. Said she didn't sacrifice all those hospital visits for me to miss my own gallery opening." Ophelia pulled back, managed a smile. "Besides, I look terrible, and I refuse to let the vampire court see me as a weak link. I need to clean up." "You look beautiful." But he let her go, helped her into the dress she'd chosen, a deep blue that made her eyes luminous. He fastened the necklace at her throat, a gift he'd given her the night before, ancient sapphires that had belonged to his mother, the only piece of his mortal life he still possessed. "Thank you," she whispered, touching the stones. "For this, for everything, for understanding. Always." He kissed her temple. "Now come, let's show them what we've built." The gallery was transformed. Hundreds of guests mingled beneath the art, champagne flowing, music drifting from hidden speakers. Ophelia recognized faces from magazines and news broadcasts, the powerful and wealthy drawn by curiosity about the reclusive Greymont and his mysterious new gallery. Eryx kept her at his side, introducing her as his curator and partner, making it clear she was under his protection. The vampires in attendance, scattered throughout the crowd, watched with interest. The humans remained oblivious to the supernatural element, seeing only beautiful, pale people who preferred dim lighting and avoided the windows. Halfway through the evening, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. A man pushed through the crowd, drunk or high, waving something in his hand. Security moved to intercept, but he was fast, wild, heading straight for Ophelia. "You're the curator, right?" he shouted. "You're the one who approved this exhibition? This stolen art, blood money paintings, all of it." He lunged forward, and Ophelia saw the knife in his hand, saw it rising toward her chest. Time seemed to slow, her exhausted mind unable to make her body move fast enough. Then Eryx was there, between her and the blade. It sank into his shoulder, and he didn't even flinch. His hand shot out, gripped the attacker's wrist, and twisted. The knife clattered to the floor, and the man screamed. "You don't," Eryx said softly, voice deadly calm. "Threaten what is mine." Security descended, hauling the attacker away. Guests murmured in shock and concern, but Ophelia only saw Eryx, saw the knife still buried in his flesh, saw the lack of blood because vampires didn't bleed like humans. "You're hurt," she said stupidly. "I'm fine. It would take more than steel to truly injure me." He pulled the knife free smoothly, handed it to Lysander, who'd appeared at his shoulder. Have him questioned. Find out if this was random or planned. Already on it, Lysander gestured, and more guards moved to control the crowd to calm the panicking guests. Eryx turned back to Ophelia, cupped her face in his hands. "Are you all right? Did he touch you?" "No, you stopped him. You always stop them." Her hands shook, adrenaline and exhaustion combining into something overwhelming. "I can't do this tonight, Eryx. I can't be strong and perfect and everything they need me to be. I can't." "Then we leave." He looked at Lysander. "Handle this. Make sure everyone understands this was an isolated incident, that the gallery is safe. Ophelia and I are retiring for the evening." "My lord, your presence isn't as important as her well-being. That's final, Lysander." He swept her away before anyone could protest into the private elevator that went directly to his floors. The moment the doors closed, Ophelia collapsed against him, and he held her while she shook with reaction. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I ruined the opening." "You did nothing of the sort. Someone attacked you, and I responded. That's not ruin, that's life." He carried her out when the elevator stopped, deposited her gently on his sofa, and wrapped her in blankets. Rest. I'll bring you tea, something to eat. You've been running on empty all day. She caught his wrist before he could move away. Don't leave. Just stay. I don't need tea or food. I need you. He settled beside her immediately, and she curled into his side, letting his cold presence anchor her. They sat in silence for a long time, and gradually her breathing steadied. The shaking stopped. I'm not very good at this, she said eventually. Being the Vampire King's consort, facing danger and keeping it together. I wanted to be strong tonight, and instead, I fell apart. You're human, Ophelia. You're allowed to have limits, to need rest and safety. That's not weakness. His hand stroked through her hair. And you're good at this. You've adapted to my world remarkably well. Handled challenges that would break most people. Tonight was simply too much, and that's understandable. What if I can't keep doing it? What if I'm not strong enough for this life? Then we adjust. Find ways to make it easier, to give you the support you need, but I don't think that will be necessary. You're stronger than you know, Ophelia Kane. You kissed me in an elevator, faced down a vampire king without fear, and saved my life at the cost of your own. You have courage in spades. You just need to believe in it yourself. She thought about that, about all the impossible things she'd already done, about the choice she'd made to stay, to fight for this relationship despite every logical reason to run, about the future she'd committed to, blood bond, an extended life, and a centuries beside this strange, wonderful man. I do believe, she said quietly. I believe in us. Then that's enough. They stayed curled together as night deepened, talking softly, planning for tomorrow. Eventually, Lysander called with news the attacker was human, mentally unstable, no connection to any vampire faction. A tragedy, but not a targeted assault. Security would be increased anyway, precautions taken. The gallery opening was declared a success despite the incident, with guests praising the collection and requesting future events. The human world remained ignorant of the supernatural elements, seeing only wealth and culture on display. We did it, Ophelia said, reading the early reviews on her phone. Look, the Times called it the most significant private collection to emerge this decade. We actually did it. Eryx's smile was pure satisfaction. You did it. I merely provided the space and resources, the vision, the curation, the choices that made it special. That was all you. I couldn't have done it without you. Then we did it together. He kissed her softly. The first of many projects, I hope. We have centuries to fill, after all. Centuries, she repeated, tasting the word. That's a long time. Not long enough, where you're concerned. She shifted to straddle his lap, wrapped her arms around his neck. When should we do the bond, the blood ritual? His hand settled on her waist, careful and possessive. Whenever you're ready. There's no rush, Ophelia. Take all the time you need to be certain. I'm certain now. She traced the line of his jaw, marveling again at his cold beauty. But I think we should wait until my mother is stronger. I want her to understand, to be part of the decision, and I want to make sure she's taken care of, that if something happens to me, nothing will happen to you. I swear it. The vow was steel and shadow. But you're right. We should wait for her health to improve, ensure she understands what it means. I'll set up trust funds, medical care for life, everything she could need. She'll want for nothing. Thank you. Ophelia kissed him, slow and deep, pouring everything she felt into it. Love and gratitude and desire and hope all tangled together. He responded in kind, his control fraying as it always did when she touched him, the king becoming simply Eryx, the man who loved her. Later, much later, she lay boneless and satisfied in his bed, tracing patterns on his chest while he watched her with soft eyes. I have something for you, he said suddenly. I was waiting for the right moment, and I think this is it. He left the bed, opened a drawer, and returned with a small box. When he opened it, Ophelia's breath caught. The ring inside was exquisite. Ancient gold worked into an intricate knot pattern, a single diamond catching the light. It looked like something from a museum, priceless and perfect. It's a promise ring, Eryx explained, suddenly uncertain in a way she'd never seen. I know we haven't discussed marriage in the human sense, and I don't want to pressure you, but I wanted you to have something tangible, something that shows my commitment, my intention to build a life with you. If you'll have it, have me. Eryx? Her eyes stung with tears, overwhelmed by the gesture, the vulnerability. Yes, of course, yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like it had been made for her. She held up her hand, watching the diamond catch the light, and felt something settle in her chest. Certainty, choice, love. I've never wanted forever before, she admitted. I always thought mortality was the point, that endings gave life meaning, but I want forever with you, Eryx. I want to watch centuries pass and know you're beside me. I want to build impossible things and see where this takes us. I want all of it. You have it. Me, my court, this tower, everything I am or will be. It's yours, Ophelia, now and always. She pulled him down into another kiss, and they lost themselves in each other again, the promise ring heavy and right on her finger. 6 months later, Ophelia stood at the windows of the library watching dawn break over the city. Her mother had recovered fully, the treatments finally successful. They'd told her everything together, Ophelia and Eryx, and after initial shock, her mother had simply said, I knew there was something. Just promise me you'll be happy. I promise, Mom. The blood bond ceremony had been private, just Eryx, Ophelia, Lysander as witness, and an ancient vampire called Marius who knew the old rituals. Ophelia had drunk from Eryx's wrist blood like cold wine burning down her throat and felt something fundamental shift inside her. Connection deeper than words. Awareness of him thrumming at the edge of her consciousness. The changes had been subtle at first. Increased energy, wounds healing faster, senses sharpening. But over time, she began to understand what she'd become. Not human, not vampire, but something in between. A bridge, Marius had called it. Something new. Eryx joined her at the window, wrapped his arms around her from behind. What are you thinking? That I kissed you in an elevator 6 months ago, and it changed everything, my whole life, the entire trajectory. One impulsive moment, and here we are. Here we are, he agreed, pressing a kiss to her temple. At the top, together. Was it worth the ride? She turned in his arms, smiled up at him. The sun was rising behind the protective glass, light without danger, warmth without death. His tower had given him that, the ability to stand in daylight beside the woman he loved. Worth everything, she said, though I think we're just getting started. Oh? Amusement danced in his eyes. What did you have in mind? Well, the gallery is successful, your court is stable, my mother is healthy. I was thinking we could expand. Open branches in other cities, build more sanctuaries like this tower, or maybe travel, see all the places you've lived, let you show me 3 centuries of history. She grinned. We have time now, centuries of it. Let's not waste it. I love you, he said simply. I loved you the moment you kissed me in that elevator, and I'll love you until the stars burn out. I love you too. She kissed him as the sun rose fully, light flooding the tower, chasing away the last shadows. Now come on, we have a whole world to explore and I want to start now. Eager thing. You have no idea. They left the tower hand in hand, walking out into the morning. The city sprawled before them, alive and vibrant, full of possibility. Vampires and humans mingled on the streets below, oblivious to each other, 2 worlds overlapping. But Ophelia saw it all now, understood the hidden currents, the supernatural beneath the mundane, and she wasn't afraid. With Eryx beside her, with centuries stretching ahead, she felt only excitement, anticipation, love. They'd started with a kiss in an elevator, a wild moment of courage that had led to everything. And now, standing at the top of the world they'd built together, Ophelia knew the ride was far from over. It was only just beginning. Later that evening, they hosted a dinner for the inner court, celebrating 6 months of the tower's success. Lysander raised a glass in toast. To King Eryx and Lady Ophelia, may their reign be long and prosperous. To the view from the top, Seraphina added with a knowing smile. To love that bridges worlds, another vampire called out. Ophelia looked around the table at these ancient beings who had accepted her despite everything. At Eryx beside her, hand clasped in hers, warmth in his eyes that had been missing for centuries before she'd stumbled into his life. To new beginnings, she said, raising her own glass, and to the ride that got us here. They drank, laughed, shared stories that spanned centuries. And when the gathering finally ended and she and Eryx returned to their private sanctuary, Ophelia stood once more at the great window, looking out over the city lights. Eryx joined her, and together they watched the world turn beneath them. Thank you, she said softly. For what? for asking me to ride with you to the top, for showing me this view, this life, for loving me enough to risk everything. Thank you for saying yes, for being brave enough to kiss a stranger in an elevator, reckless enough to save a vampire king, and bold enough to choose forever. He turned her to face him, and his smile was devastating. Thank you for being mine, Ophelia Kane. Always, she promised. Now and forever, I'm yours. He kissed her as the city sparkled below and above the stars emerged, and Ophelia thought that this right here was what happiness looked like. Not perfect, not without challenges or danger, but real, earned, chosen. They'd have centuries to face whatever came. Political intrigue, threats from those who opposed their union, the slow navigation of a world that didn't understand what they'd built. But they'd face it together from the top of the tower with the view spreading endlessly before them. The elevator had been just the beginning, that first upward climb, but the real journey, the true ride, was everything that came after, and Ophelia was ready for all of it. She'd ridden with him to the top, and the view was more beautiful than she'd ever imagined. Not just the city spread below, but the future stretching ahead, bright with possibility. Hand in hand, hearts bound together by blood and choice and love, they stood at the pinnacle of what they'd built. King and consort, vampire and human, two souls who'd found each other against impossible odds, and above them, the stars wheeled eternal, marking time they now had in abundance. Years to love, to live, to explore everything the world had to offer. It was perfect. It was home. It was theirs. The end of the beginning and the start of forever.